Good day, and thank you for tuning in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. For all of our new listeners and viewers who are tuning in for the very first time, I'm Pastor Pope, Senior Pastor of New Life Christian Center, 400 Hillcrest Avenue in Wilmington, Delaware, 19809. We are located right on the corner of Hillcrest and Marsh Road. There is parking on Hillcrest. We are the brown brick building located right on the corner of Hillcrest and Marsh Road. Service begins every Sunday at 10 a.m. We invite you to experience a better quality of life. Come and worship with us 10 a.m. every Sunday morning. And if you're in our area, and if you're not in our area, you can tune in for the Sunday sermon at 10:45 a.m. when we go live on all of our platforms. We go live on Facebook, YouTube, at New Life Christian Center Pastor Pope, and that goes live at 10:45 a.m. So we want everyone to tune in. But if you're in our area, we invite you to come and worship with us and come and experience a better quality of life. And of course, we're here every Monday through Friday from 12:30 p.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. Broadcasting live from the FijiWater.com sponsored studio, where you can discuss careers, finances, entrepreneurship. You can discuss marriage, divorce, raising children, blending families. You can discuss dating and relationships, whatever's in your heart, whatever's on your mind. God is concerned about that which concerns you. And that is the reason we are here in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast, which is brought to you daily by Fiji Water, Earth's finest water. You may already know that Fiji water comes from Fiji. However, did you know that it is created by nature? It is untouched by man. It starts as a tropical rainfall which slowly filters through layers of volcanic rock, where the water collects in a natural, sustainable artesian aquifer, where it's bottled right at the source, free from human contact until you unscrew the blue cap. Fiji water, Earth's finest water, will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. This is not just ordinary water. This is Earth's finest water at FijiWater.com. And for those of you who continue giving on the Give segment of our app at New Life-Delaware, and those of you that have made a weekly or monthly commitment to support the broadcast by giving on the contribution pages of our websites at NewLifeMinistriesInternational.com and New Life internationalcdc.com, and for those of you that use the QR code posted on Facebook and on YouTube, or the link that is provided on Facebook and YouTube, we thank all of you for your continued support and for your commitment as we fulfill our commitment to God to be here for you in 3D, the Daily Divine Direction broadcast. So I'm going to address a communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers. Before I do that, I want to remind everyone that we are Facebook Live, we are YouTube Live at Daily Divine Direction. You can tune in for both 3D and for the Sunday sermon at New Life Christian Center Pastor Pope. And we want you to stay connected with us. We want you to stay tuned in to our internet radio station, WKAP Faith Empowerment Radio, where we play music that will encourage you, empower you, and inspire you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year at WKAPfaith.com. And so I'm going to address this communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who said to us that you always try to be truthful about everything. However, the truth often becomes painful for people to hear. And you want to know, why do people refuse to hear the truth? You know, let me really walk you through this. Yes, you know, there's an old adage, the truth hurts. Sometimes the truth can be painful for people to hear. You don't have to really go through life being brutally honest and painfully honest. You know, there's a difference between telling the truth and being brutally and painfully honest. And I know that for some people, you're going to say the truth is the truth. Well, the truth is the truth. However, there are moments when there's some things we just don't need to say. Let me give you an example of that, because it's really, really interesting. My wife and I had a conversation about this just recently. And you could find someone very, very unattractive to you. They might approach you and you might find them to be very unattractive. You don't want to say to them, why, you're ugly. You don't even want to say you're unattractive. You remember the old adage, if you don't have something good to say, just don't say anything? You may just smile and respond to their question and keep it moving. You don't want to say to them something that's going to be offensive. You might not like what your girlfriend is wearing to work in her professional environment today. But that doesn't mean you have to tell her her dress is ugly. You might not wear that, because, and the reason I said my wife and I had this conversation, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. So whoever's observing people, places, or things, they get to decide what's beautiful. And everyone's taste is different. So you don't get to be the authority of all people. So you don't get to say you're ugly or you're unattractive. You don't get to say that to someone just because it's what you think. You don't get to say to your girlfriend who chose the dress she has on today, you don't get to say that dress is ugly, because that's offensive. Your point of view is, but she's my girlfriend and it's the truth. Well, it's your truth. In her eyes, she may think the dress is beautiful. In your other co-worker's eyes, who works down the hall, they might think the dress is quite lovely. You don't get to decide that. And what you don't want to do is, you don't want to be so brutally honest with your opinion or perspective that it becomes offensive. The Bible says, do not offend in word. That doesn't mean you can't tell the truth. It means that some things don't need to be said, particularly if they're just your opinion. Because everyone's opinion and everyone's perspective varies. So, and as I said, we were having that conversation about, what one person finds beautiful, someone else may not find beautiful, because beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, or beauty is an opinion. It's also fleeting. So you say, why do people refuse to hear the truth? Some things don't need to be said. It doesn't mean that they're not true. It just means that, and I'll go a little further, because you really were quite opinionated about your perspective on this topic. You say you always try to tell the truth about everything. Well, everything is not a fact. Some things are opinion. Some things are perspective. So let me give you an example of that. I mentioned your coworker's dress could be an example. I mentioned, the attractiveness of someone else. I mentioned, look, you could look at someone who's severely overweight, and by medical standards, they're obese. That doesn't mean you have the right to tell them they're obese. That's for their primary care doctor to tell them, because he's the professional. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that someone else wouldn't find them to be attractive because they have inner beauty as opposed to outer beauty, for lack of a better term. But at the same time, because their inner beauty outshines everything else, they may find them attractive. So you've got to know that everything doesn't need to be said. It's not a matter of why do people refuse to hear the truth. It's just that some things doesn't need to be said. And we have to be mindful of that. We have to understand that there are going to be moments when you are not going to, I'm not saying you won't tell the truth. I'm saying you might not be truthful at that moment. Someone asks you if I ask you if you like the tie I have on today, and you said that's an ugly tie, it might offend me. It won't, but it might if I were someone else. Because in my opinion, and once again, there's the opinion, I like the tie I have on. But you might say, well, that's an ugly tie. And then if I allowed my emotions to be part of the equation, I could find that offensive and say, I'm going to stay away from you. I'm not going to do that. I don't know you, but you're not in my area. But I'm trying to make a point to say that everything is not a matter of, is it truthful and honest, or is it offensive? That we have to take into consideration, because that's the Bible. The Bible. You know what's really interesting, and now I want to make this point to all of our listeners and viewers. So thank you for bringing this out. You don't need to be painfully honest, though. You can be truthful. You can be true. Tell the truth about everything that is factual, without being painfully honest to people to the point that it becomes offensive. The problem in our society today is that we're in a place where we're in an environment right now where people feel like it is okay to say whatever they want to say. I can say whatever I want to say because it's my right to say it. But there's a reason, there's an old adage that says if you don't have something good to say, it's better not to say it. And then it's all delivery. You know, if you deliver it in a positive way, like I used the example about someone who might be obese, you might talk to them, if it's someone you love, you might talk to them about their health and wellness, not about the fact that they're overweight. There's a way to deliver a conversation to people that you love, to your loved ones. Now you can't just walk, I don't care what people say today about, I can say whatever I want to say because it's my right to say it. Well, sometimes your right can be wrong. Because what you perceive to be your right and what might be the law or what might be acceptable in the terms of offensive to someone else doesn't give you that right. Because then you become verbally abusive. And that's part of what's happening in our society today. People feel like it's okay to be verbally abusive. People feel like I can say whatever I want to say because it's my right to say it. Well, your right is wrong. It's not your right to offend others. It's your right to share information with others when they inquire or when they are seeking a recommendation or some form of instruction. It's your right to share information. But it's not our right to be painfully honest to the point where it is offensive to others. We've got to do a better job in our society of, guarding our tongue. Make certain, I've used this analogy before and I'll use it again. Sometimes it's better to be silent and thoughtful than to open your mouth and remove all doubt. That has been something that I learned decades ago, and I've repeated over and over again. I've used that in a sermon in my church. It's better sometimes to just be silent Some things don't need to be said. And we don't always need to be heard. We think we do. We think I have a right to be heard. Sometimes you don't need to be heard. Because once you release that sound, you can't unring the bell. And it could have unintended consequences. So we have to be mindful of that, because we're all really trying to manifest the best possible life that we can obtain for ourselves and become the best version of ourselves that we can possibly become. This segment of the broadcast is brought to you by T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. So if you're not currently a T-Mobile customer, you may call or text on the T-Mobile call or text line at 267-992-1424. We will move you into our queue so that you may become a T-Mobile customer and experience America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. Taxes and fees are included in your bill, and if you auto pay by attaching a credit card to your account, you will receive a discount on your monthly bill. The T-Mobile, America's largest, fastest, and most reliable 5G provider at no extra charge. We appear to have lost our connection here, and I don't understand what's happening, but it is happening, and it could be due to the weather conditions here today, but nonetheless, it appears that we're back. And so I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers, who indicated that your husband says that you are consistently nagging him. You say you do not feel like a nag and you only want him to be the best that he can be. And so you say you don't feel like you're nagging him, but you believe that he can be better. So what does that look like for you? What does it look like to you for him to be better? And why do you feel that he's not being his best? So let me ask these questions and then walk through what I see going on here. What is it that makes you feel that he's not being his best? Are you comparing him to the spouses of your friends? Are you comparing him to a colleague at work? Because you don't really know what the colleague at work is like when he goes home. You only know what he's like when he's in his professional environment, so you don't really know what he's like when he's in his personal environment. Are you comparing him to your friends' spouses? Do you think your friends have better husbands than you have? Is that what you're comparing them to? And what does that look like for you? How do you analyze that comparison? What are your basis for analysis? What's the baseline? What's the analytics look like? How do you determine that he's not being the best that he can be? So you've got to ask yourself those questions, and you've got to examine yourself. You're examining him, but you got to examine yourself. What are your expectations of him? Is it because you want him to be something more than he is? Do you want him? You say you only want the best for him. You want him to be his best. You got to determine what that looks like for you. So let's walk through this. You mentioned in your communication that your friends' husbands are doing so much more. What does that look like? What do you think they're doing more than what he's doing? Because everybody has a different skill set. Everyone has a different knowledge base. So when you say you want him to be the best that he can be, are you really saying you want him to be better because you want him to be like your girlfriend's spouse? Because that's not possible. He can't be someone else. He can only be who he is. And if you're constantly saying to him that what he's doing is not enough, then his statement about you nagging him is just his perception of how you make him feel. So you really have to determine. So when I say, what does that look like for you? Are you asking him to put more effort into his career? Are you asking him to put more effort into being healthy? Are you asking him to put more effort into enhancing his body, mind, and spirit? What does that really look like for you? So the only takeaway can be that you're expecting him to be something you say the best he can be, but you're comparing him to someone else. And that's not going to be conducive for success in your lives. He can't be someone else. He can't do what someone else does. What he can do is be the best that he can be. And he has to determine what that is for himself. Now, you can have conversations about that. You can have conversations about how he can do more in his career. You could have conversations, if you two are able to communicate in that way, you could talk about how you could be better, you could both be better in your careers. Because none of us are perfect. None of us have fully maximized our potential. And the reason I know that is because, or our purpose, because we're still here. The Lord hasn't called us home. So we all have the opportunity today, tomorrow, next day, the next day after that, the day after that, to be better. But we have to determine what that looks like. And what that looks like for you and what that looks like for him may not be the same thing. So you have to have that conversation also. There's more to it than what it looks like to you comparing him to your girlfriend's husband's. It's more to it than, he's not being his best. None of us are the best we can be yet. None of us. We can be really good, but there's always room for improvement. Old adage. There's always room for improvement. So none of us are being because that's ever evolving, none of us are being the very best that we can possibly become. And you know what's interesting about that? There are genuinely people who believe that they are being the best that they can be. Watch this. You can be great at something and not so great at something else. Right? You could be the very best at your profession. Your personal life may not be so great. I'll even give you a more complex. There are people who are great at business who aren't great at philanthropy. There's always room for improvement is where I'm going. Everyone. We all have some area of our lives that we can improve, that we can be better, that we can do better. So that's just a conversation you need to have with your spouse and determine what it really looks like. What are your concerns about him being his best? And then when you have that conversation, he's then able to make a decision on what he can improve. Because trust me when I tell you, there's areas where all of us can improve in all of our lives. I could think of 3 categories for myself right now, right off the top of my head. I don't even have to sit around and ponder that. There are 3 areas right now in my life that I could be, in my everyday life that I could be better already. I know that, but it's going to take time because, and some of you know what I'm talking about. First of all, it's technology. I'm a baby boomer. I'm a technology immigrant, so it's going to take time for me. And because you don't have a lot of people willing to show you the way or walk you through it, or they feel they don't have time to walk you through it, meaning vendors, you're not going to be the best right away. But maybe over time we can get there. I could be better in my health and wellness. I could be better. There very quickly I can think of 3 areas where I could be better. We all can be better in some areas. And I'm sure if you had a conversation with my wife, she could probably think of 3 more right off the top of her head, and it wouldn't be the 3 I said. Because we all can be better. But we've got to put in the work, and it takes time. Rome wasn't built in a day. It takes time to get to the place that God has purposed for all of us. This segment of the broadcast has been brought to you by Charles Tyrwhitt, located in London, the UK. They also have they also have stores in New York, Chicago, Washington, D.C., and at the King of Prussia Mall in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So if you're in any of those areas, stop in at their retail stores. They have everything a man could possibly need: shirts for men, ties for men, suits for men, and accessories. If you're not in any of those areas, you can order from Charles Tyrwhitt at ctshirts.com. I'm literally in Charles Tyrwhitt attire today. And if you're ordering right now from Charles Tyrwhitt, you will find that there is a sale going on at ctshirts.com. You can order 3 high-quality cotton shirts for $99 at Charles Tyrwhitt, ctshirts.com. And this segment is also brought to you by The White Company, located in London, the UK. They also have a store on 5th Avenue in New York. So if you're in New York, stop in at the retail store. They have everything you could possibly need: home goods, clothing for men, women, and children. And if you're not in New York, you can order from The White Company at thewhitecompany.com. They too will ship and deliver right to your front door in an appropriate period of time. I'm going to address another communication that came in from one of our listeners and viewers who indicated that you have so much going on right now in your life right now. You want to know, how do you manage the things you want to do and the things you do not want to do? The reason I have to chuckle when I read that, and even now reading it, is that we all, so this is going to take us into Sunday sermon, just a little bit. I'm not going to go far with it. You do what is necessary. You have to recognize that there are some things that are necessary to be done. That's how you manage them. You manage what's going on in your life right now by doing what's necessary. The problem is most people don't want to do what's necessary. They want to do what they want to do. But we have to do what's necessary to be done. And then the things you want to do will take care of themselves. You'll find the time to do what you want to do. You won't find the time to do the things that are necessary. You have to require yourself to do what's necessary. And the problem is, if you don't do what's necessary, someone else will place that requirement on you, whether it's your employer, whatever it may be. You're going to always find it accountable to do what's necessary. The interesting thing about that is that we always want to do what we want to do, and we'll set the necessary things aside, unless they're time sensitive. But the reality is that we have to really manage our lifestyle by compartmentalizing. Okay, these are the things that must be done today. These are the things that I can do over a period of time. Because those are the things I want to do. I'll give you an example. I want to be on the golf course this afternoon. I cannot be on the golf course this afternoon. And the reason is because I have other priorities. So those I had to compartmentalize and say, okay, this is what's necessary. Golf, there'll be another day. The course isn't going anywhere. The club's not going anywhere. There'll be another day. And I'll get out and play. But I'd love to be out there today because it's a beautiful day out there. I'd love to be out there playing golf, but I know that I have things that must be done. And those are the things I'm going to focus on. So do what's necessary, and you'll find that you'll manage your life much more effectively and efficiently. Today's Daily Divine Direction broadcast 3D has been brought to you by Fiji Water. A taste of paradise will be delivered right to your front door when you subscribe for delivery, and you'll save money at FijiWater.com. May God bless you today. May God keep his face turned towards you. May God give you peace that surpasses all understanding. Have a great day today. Remember, this Sunday, like every Sunday, if you're in our area, come and worship with us at New